Is it possible that the tunnel systems are more vast and far-reaching than we could ever imagine? Ally isn't the only one who's been speaking out about the underworld.
People that have been victimized as children, as we suspect this has happened to Justin, I think it's pretty obvious. I think that people need to understand that it's a lot sicker and deeper than you're seeing on the TV. Even with Sean Combs, you know, they're talking about these freak off parties. That's nothing compared to what's really going on. Like they said, they found his mansion on the inside, in the inside world, you know, the tunnels and the inside world. So inside the world, these people are being brought there and they are being abused sadistically in ways that you can't even imagine. The things that you think you know about SRA, it's nothing compared to what it actually is. You wouldn't believe what's going on under there. It's a whole nother world. They have their own education system. They teach people children statism. They have, it's just mind blowing. And I can't really speak on it as someone who has access and goes there and knows where everything is. I can only speak on it as someone that was brought there in an altered state of consciousness. And, you know, I have memories and I understand how, you know, the tunnels lead to these places, and I have experiences there, but I have experiences there as a victim. So I can't really tell you everything, but from the little pieces that I can put together from very clear memories, it's just a whole nother education, a whole nother world. And they're absolutely manipulating the surface people. And they have us locked down into a system of control, and they reap the harvest of everything that they didn't work for. And they're doing really, really demonic things. They are, you know, I mean, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say, but it's sick beyond belief. It's stuff that, you know, you have to be careful when you share, because it doesn't just fall out of your head. When you put that into somebody's mind, into their consciousness, it doesn't just like a TV commercial, you forget about it in a half an hour or an hour. It is something that is deeply troubling. And there's different levels. It's not just one, you go in and then there's many different levels, and they have different things going on. Like, I'm sure lots of you have heard about some of the deeply disturbing laboratories that are found under the earth, and they're, you know, going deep into the earth, and there's like these different elevators that go down, and each level has different kinds of experiments. They have been doing stuff for so long you can't even imagine, whether it's cloning or splicing different species together, torture chambers. There's so much going on. There's so many different levels. I only know my experience, which is very limited, but I can validate that it's real. I can validate that it absolutely exists. But, you know, you don't really need my validation now that, you know, it's been discovered with the Sean Combs case. I think that's a tremendous breakthrough that they've discovered it, because when you talk about these things, it's very important that you stay factually based in what you say. So if you just go off talking about SRA, but you don't have any proof, people can write you off as a lunatic, and then you're not getting heard and you're putting yourself in a place of danger. But if you talk about things that are already proven, like the mansion that was found under the ground, like some of these, there's been whistleblowers that have talked about these inner world, different levels with different laboratories. We have to find proof and facts and talk about them, because they can't be disputed if they've already, you know, been proven. But if we just start talking about, well, I had an experience and this is what happened, and it's very real and it's very valid, but where's the proof? And without the proof, if I talk about it and if I mention anybody's name, I can be sued for character defamation, for harassment, for libel. So it's very important to structure your speech in a way that you're able to communicate your experience without them being able to shut you up. Justin Bieber and his son. So what you think happened to Justin, I can promise you it's a lot worse. Because when you are used in an SRA or you're a part of any of this kind of behavior, these people are drugged and they do things that they would never normally do, and it absolutely includes children. And so nobody's children is safe. That's why I left and I took some of my children and I broke out, because I wanted to save them and protect them from it. But it's up to Justin to protect his child, and if any harm has already come to his child, then it's up to him to help with a healing process, and that's going to take all kinds of therapy, and we have to develop new therapies and qualified therapists just specifically for this sadistic abuse, this ritualistic abuse, because it's very deep and it's very shattering on every level of your existence. They break you. You have to understand, it's not just some great party where they're all just, sadistically getting off. They have taken their victims and broken them down mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and to put yourself back together, it is not easy. And I would like to envision, some kind of sadistic recovery centers in the future with qualified therapists that are not sadists. See, here's another part of the problem, is that the sadists are attracted to the churches, therapy, because they get off on hearing about the victims. And that's another reason why I try not to talk about what actually goes on or how hurt and broken I really am as a human being, because I don't want to feed them. We have to find a way to talk about our experience without feeding them, because they absolutely love to hear about it. They love to hear about us suffering. So we have to learn how to come together as a group of survivors, or people that are just supporting the whole Save the Children movement. And we have to learn how to communicate so that they can't shut us down or, have us arrested or, trouble us in any way. And we have to figure out how to develop new healing therapies where we're, first of all, educated and aware of what this abuse is. And it's just so similar in so many ways to narcissistic abuse, and there's been so much education lately about that, and that's wonderful. But really, I'd like to see a mass exodus out of sadism, because most of the people in sadism were originally victimized as children, and then they get caught in the loop and they can't get out, and then they're recorded and they're controlled and they're owned. And I really have faith in us as a community that we can start sharing our experiences in a healthy way, and we can create a dialogue and a safe space, and out of that we can give birth to a whole new generation and a whole new system of healing. Like they have a system of destruction, we have to have a system of healing and of light. And I think that we already have it, but we're very scattered and we're very broken, and a lot of us are pitted against one another, and we're all just trying to figure it out, where they have had it figured out and they have been in control for time immemorial. And in the future, I would like to see recovery centers for sadism, and I would like to see all of the victims be healed, and not just from the music industry, but from the whole world. There's just it's insane to understand the vast reach that this sickness has. This evil demonic practice, this evil demonic way of life has reached every corner, every aspect of our lives, of our society. Like I said, the mask is falling down and the veil is lifting. So it's not just that we see them because the mask is falling down. We're awakening. It's time for the human consciousness to keep rising. And as our individual consciousness rises, our collective consciousness rises, and the people that are of pure souls, that are not demonized and not interested in any of that nonsense, we're going to start forming our own communities and our own systems, and their system is going to fall away. And I think this is a part of them falling away. Everything is being revealed. They can't hide anymore. The truth that has been hidden in the darkness is coming to light. The darkness is being exposed, and it's out of their control, if you ask me.
Well, on that job, we had to be led. There is no way that you can just walk into a tunnel. The entrances and the exits are in your face, but there's no way that you can just walk through tunnels. You'll get stuck. You'll go deeper and deeper. You won't be able to come back out because it's hard, because the tunnels run all different directions for miles and miles and miles and miles. So if you go down the wrong one, you'll get stuck, and it's confusing to turn back around and get back to where you're going. So you have to be led in and out. People build these tunnels, and they've built them for decades. There's bodies of victims that are babies, adults, limbs, bloody shrines. There's kids down there that act like animals. There's people who run science experiments on babies. There's baby farms. There's a lot, and elite celebrities. They go down there for parties. My pimp at 15 years old took me. I was in Child Protective Services custody in Riverside County, California. My social workers knew. I tried to tell them. I tried to ask for help. They told me he was just my boyfriend, and if I didn't like it, I should break up with him. But it wasn't that easy. I even asked him to move me at one point because he told me that nobody would ever believe me, and that if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, I'd be his wife. Or he would auction me off to the highest bidder. So I did what I had to do.
There are underground tunnels that are under the schools, elementary, junior, and high schools all over the place. They exist everywhere.
You've been in.
I'm sorry.
You've seen these. Been in these.
Yes.
Where do
yes,
they lead?
They lead to amusement parks. They lead to hospitals, cemeteries, schools, celebrity homes, psychic shops. They lead everywhere.
You mentioned in one of your previous interviews that it's like a whole other world down there. Can you describe it to us? What happens down there?
Yes, there's every means of transportation. There's every walk of life. There's cities. There's different air supply. There's at 15, my pimp put me on an order to go to the Getty, Los Angeles, California Museum. I was told I was going to walk through a field trip. I was taken with another girl. I call a friend of mine, and we were put in dresses and sandals. We were taken in a sports car. We're not taken in a sports car. We pulled up to the museum in a sports car. We were told that we were trying to give a different appearance. So we were walking through, I remember walking through kids. I remember walking in and seeing school buses. I remember walking in and seeing children and chaperones through the museum. And I remember people staring at us as if it was as if we were somebody special. We walked through the museum. There are, employees that know exactly what's going on in the museum. They block the doors. They know where the entrances and exits are. They take their orders from someone else when someone is trying to get underground through the Getty Los Angeles Museum. I was walked through. I remember taking stairs, going through a garden, taking an elevator. I was drugged, but I was walking. There are many situations in trafficking where you can be alert. Some of my pimps did not let me see where I was going. Sometimes I was so drugged that I was carried into a job, dressed, and then placed in a room and waiting for my order because I couldn't move myself. So at this time, I was able to walk. I was able to see what was going on. And I remember walking through. I remember talking to certain people after we got so far. I remember my ears popping. I remember feeling like I'm choking because the air was so weird. We got to a certain point and there was, it looked like a basement. It looked like where they keep things that were not public display in the museum. And after getting so far, we were in tunnels. We were put on cars, drove to a certain point far. I seen I seen cars, boats, there's trains, there's buses, there is every means of transportation under the ground. There's a city under the ground. There are there's a different air supply that kicks in after you get so low.
And who goes down there?
After getting down there, I talked to a few people. I was able to meet celebrities, actors. I'm not a person that knows somebody just by name or by face or right away. I was somebody who remembered somebody from a movie or something like that, or something that they did. I was able to speak with somebody that was so cocky. And I remember telling him, I know you from Look Who's Talking. That's all. And I remember everybody laughing at me because I was 15 and I'm like, the only thing that I know you from, John Travolta, is Look Who's Talking. I know there were many comedians, Kathy Griffin, Robin Williams, I was on an order for Joe Biden. I was taken to somewhere where there were there was an orgy party. There was a contest going on. There's a certain part that has a shrine where I was taken, and what I mean by shrine is it was bones. It was things that have happened to other people. They take shrines. They take like a trophy, whether it was a ripped shirt, panties, hands, pieces of flesh. There's a smell that you can't even flinch towards down there, but you will. There's certain people that you don't talk about because you just don't. There were certain people that I seen down there, from Beyonce, Jay-Z. You don't tell on P. Diddy, but P. Diddy.
So you said you don't tell on these people. Is that like a code that all victims adhere to? They don't talk about this stuff?
Yes, you don't, because nobody's going to believe you. You're nothing to them. You don't count. You're just a toy. You're not essential, as they call them. You're expendable. And as a child in that situation, I wasn't the type of person that was fighting all the time, because I started to learn who I was. I started to learn my pimp. I started to learn what I was in. I started to learn that you don't fight. You watch what you say, you watch what you do. And at some point I stopped fighting people, and I started to accept the fact of what I was told, that I was special enough to be with this person. I was special enough to be in the eyes of a celebrity or somebody who was on the radio or on TV. And I accepted that. While I was down there was something that happened. I don't even know what to call it. There was something that sounded like an earthquake, something that sounded like people got into a fight. There was a shooting. I was taken from one room to another, and then from there, someone left me there. I started moving and trying to get out of where I was. I was with the friend that I came in with, who was freaking out. She was hyperventilating. She was crying. She was trying everything to get out, and it made us get deeper in. The lower you go, the harder it is to get out. No one knows where the doors are. No one knows where the exits are. No one knows where some of these tunnels lead to. So it's not as easy to just say, I'm just going to get out, or I'm just going to try to find a way out. If you are walked in, you're escorted in, somebody has to help you get out. After what happened, we had to leave. Again, I don't know what was going on. I'm still not sure what happened that night. There's a baby farm that exists. There's all ages. There's kids who don't act like kids. They act like wild animals. They hiss at you. They act like wild animals. I know some of them have been there since probably birth or before. There's children of all ages. There's people who have been there since they were babies, but they're adults now.
And how long do they stay there? Till what age?
I don't know. Till whatever happens to them happens, and whatever their time is. There's baby farms that exist underground. Your hospitals are complicit in giving babies to baby farms. And when I say, I'm talking newborn babies fresh out of the hospital. I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of my friends die. There's so much that goes on.
And it's not so these particular things that you're talking about now, these extreme horrific acts, this is reserved for the elites. Is that correct?
Yes. They get away with eating, beating, torturing, buying children from many places, and it also feeds their career. Selling your soul doesn't necessarily mean selling your soul for money. It means selling out for things that you're willing to do, a dedication to what they call their God. Then people compete with that. Everybody is competing with that, trying to do something equal or worse.
Are they open about who their God is?
Sometimes. Yeah, some people act as if they're Christian or other religions that we all know of, but and I was buried alive. I was saved and told that I had to give my life to them because they saved me. they're it's in everybody's face. It's something that happens every day.
So a few people were asking, or someone was asking, whether all of this took place in America, but from what I understand, you've also been to Buckingham Palace. Is that correct?
Yes. In my time at CBS, I was taken over borders. I was taken out of the country. That should have been a problem. That should have been an FBI problem, but it wasn't. I was taken for jobs over the weekend for a few days at a time.
Here, and I had tried to speak to him about not going into it, but he had said, well, it's too late for him at that point when I met him. He's like, first of all, this is when he started sharing with me that he had been used as a living altar from the time he was 4 years old. He had already been into the whole sadistic system and was on tape and video. And, you know, once you're caught, there's nothing you can really do to escape except die, you know, and, some people have actually chosen to do that, you know, or some people have been eliminated because they refuse to participate. So he was in a situation where it was like, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And how do you make the best of it? At that point, you're not realizing what the consequences are going to be, whether you're J-Lo or Sean Combs or whoever you are.
So I guess that kind of just leads into it then is, that kind of thing that had happened to him and maybe like certain other celebrities and certain other people that, you know, are kind of part of this, that all would be occurring in a tunnel somewhere, I'm assuming. That kind of behavior.
Well, I mean, they have their surface parties and then they have their inner world experiences. I refer to it as the inner world. The tunnels are just entrances into the inner world, and there's so much evidence. I mean, like indisputable evidence about whether they're military bases that have different levels that you can take, you know, big tunnels that it's been proven. Also now with the Sean Combs case, there's evidence. So when we talk about it now, we can speak about it without being discredited. In the past, they've always just tried to discredit us about it. So you sound like a crazy lunatic conspiracy theorist. Now there's evidence. So as far as the prohibition goes, the family that adopted me on the mother's side, her mother, who was my adopted grandmother, they had 2 hotels that were inside the earth where they sold alcohol. So they had to have places where they could go where they couldn't get busted on the surface. But these tunnels and these systems are existing way before prohibition. The whole world is connected through tunnels. You can go anywhere. You can go somewhere in Italy and end up in, South America. The whole world has an inner world and a tunnel system. Tunnel systems are completely connected, but we could, like you said, get into that more deeply as a quick clip, maybe like an introduction. I can tell you that the house that I grew up in, one of them, it was a new development, and they developed the houses with the tunnel system. So first they developed the tunnel system so you can't see any of the work going on the surface. And then they build the house on top. And then they sell the house to people that are part of the sadistic elite so that they have access to go inside. It's part of the selling point of the house. Not every house is a mansion. I did not grow up in a mansion. I had a part of my life where I lived in a mansion, but that's a whole other story. But in my earlier childhood, I was not living in a big mansion with a big tunnel system, but there was several houses in this community that were intentionally built connected to the tunnels. And it was in the basement, and then there was a rug and a cover over it. And they would bring you into that tunnel system, and then you can get into a car, and then you can go to wherever, I guess, the party is. So the inner world is connected. But what's so interesting is, I mean, I almost don't want to say it, but the truth is, when I started to come out and started to speak about my childhood, all of a sudden, all these houses got destroyed. Before, they blocked off the tunnels and covered them up from the inside before they brought the houses down and destroyed the house. Yeah. So if you go there and you look at it, well, there's no tunnel there. What are you talking about? So they know how to cover themselves up. Like the fires in, I think it was California. There was all of a sudden, after the the tunnels and the systems that connect the houses was exposed through the Sean Combs case, and it became proof. All of a sudden there were all these fires where the trees next to the houses didn't burn, but the houses burned.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like what's going on with that?
Pretty targeted for sure. And it's funny that you mentioned too, like that, because Ally's been talking about the tunnels and everything, and she had said, like, watch for the fires, watch for the explosions. Like after it all came out and everything was getting confirmed, that's literally, she had mentioned that. And then so like that couple weeks later, all these fires started happening, and that's when people really started paying more attention too, which is like, at least people are starting to get that part. So it's interesting you bring that up, because like that happened in like there was the Mick Martin preschool case too, where the kids had talked about the tunnels and stuff, but then by the time it all came around, they were kind of fighting the time because they wanted to demo the place, and there wasn't really a reason to demo it, but and then it was conflicting with it just added, it was part of the cover up, you know.
So there were tunnels in my school too, but they would just say, oh, the Russians are coming, and they would play, you know, on the old reel-to-reel like movie projectors up on the screen that you would pull down, like the canvas, you know, little cartoons, the Russians are coming, get under your desk and cover your head, you know, like, and the part of this program was that if there's ever an attack, an invasion, that we knew where the entrance to the tunnels were, and a couple times we had to practice getting in line and walking into the tunnel, it's like, they have like a metal cover over it and a mat over it, and they lift up the mat and they open up the metal cover, and there's a staircase that goes into the tunnels, and we would have to practice that as like an evacuation safety thing in case the Russians would come.
That's like a fire drill, but for
exactly.
Yeah, that's actually crazy, because like a lot of people have talked about that too, about them being connected to schools, connected to like just different areas in town, different businesses, and how it's this whole interconnected system. So for your experience, from what you remember, how, you know, and you kind of generalized it, but what, I guess, you're saying there's different modes of transportation, and there's kind of like a city down there, and like, what else?
It's more than a city. There's a whole world. There's a whole another existence, and the people and the beings, the entities that are in our world, they have put a system of control in the outer world on the surface people. So the system, whether you call it the rat race or whatever you want to call it, this system of control that, you know, is a sadistic system. You get sick from the healthcare system. You get dumbed down from the education system. There's no justice in the, you know, courts of law. It's sadistic. So, in this whole sadistic system is run by the people in the inner world.
Yeah.
So I call it the inner world and the surface world. I don't call it the outer world because that's a whole nother conversation. But, so my experience is that, you know, it was actually normal to know that it exists and what it is. It wasn't like some big secret in my world, but at the same time, I was, a victim. I wasn't someone that, you know, would go down there and, you know, go driving around in a car. I haven't been in the inner world, the inner society, since I think the last time I was there, 15, maybe 16 years old. So I don't have experience of being in there as an adult. But as a child, usually they sedate you and you are, you know, it seems like a dream. You're not really so sure of all of it. But then later, when your memories start to come back and you detox all of these drugs that were given to you, and you regain your clarity, and then you remember more in detail. But at the same time, there's times when you're there and the scopolamine will wear off, and then those memories you actually carry with you when you return to the surface, but it doesn't make sense. You're like, well, where is this room? Where is this place? Like, I remember it very clearly, but how come I don't see it on the surface? And then as a child, you go, oh, okay, right, that's in the inner world. So I have experiences like that. But what I want people to know is you really don't want to know what's going on there. I know there's this hunger to know, but you really, you know, you don't want to know, and we don't want to, like you always say, no trauma porn. but they have a whole system. They have technology that we don't have on the surface. They are so organized. It is not some random thing, okay? It is so organized. Like when they bring people into the inner world, there's a way that they process families and people, and it's sadistic, and it's brutal, and it's horrible, and believe me, you don't want to know the details of it. 40 years later, I'm still trying to put my brain back together just from, experiencing it. So talk about having your mind completely split, and just completely like the most torturous stuff. So you don't want to know. You don't want to destroy your mind and destroy your innocence to know the actual specific details. So it's not just, people talk about the tunnels. The tunnels are just entrance ways to get into that realm. And they have technologies that, we don't have. They have all kinds of things going on. They have government facilities that they say go down. There's been whistleblowers. There's been evidence of these big tunnels and the army vehicles going in, bringing supplies, massive tunnels. And there's different levels of laboratories where they are doing experiments, unspeakable experiments. And this is going on, and people know it's going on, and it's been proven that it's going on. But as soon as you want to talk about how it's a sadistic system and how all these children that are disappearing, well, they got to go somewhere where, like you always say, there's cameras everywhere. Where are these children going? How are they just fall off the face of the earth? They're going into the system, but they're not disappearing. Okay, these people, everyone that goes inside is processed, catalyzed. You go to what is it called? Categorized, cataloged. Thank you.
Categorized.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cataloged, but not in these systems that we see today with paper and pen. They have this whole hologram technology. There's so much technology that we don't have yet on the surface, and they tease you with it before they give it to you. Like the first time I used a tablet to do something on, I must have been like maybe 9 years old, 11 years, like I was a young child. So they've had this technology before they release it to the people. They're releasing it to us like in drips, slowly, but underneath in this inner world system, they have technology that, you see in Marvel movies or whatever, and they are extremely organized. There's no one that's disappearing, let's say, like from the surface world. We don't know where these children went. When they go inside the world, it's not like, well, they stumbled in there on their own, or, some human transportation people are just saying, here's a bunch of kids. Everyone is cataloged, categorized. Everything is so organized and very professional.
Yeah. And so like you're saying, like they have schools down there, they have like the transportation systems, they have doctors, like everybody, like it's all the same as you would have on the surface world, but everything they need underneath.
It's a manipulation, and inside that world, they are completely aware of what's going on. There's no like, oh, is this happening? There's no doubt. It's very structured. It's very organized. And the schools, they have a whole different, the sadists have a completely different education system. They teach children from a very young age to be sadists, to not just perform in SRA, a sadistic ritual, but to, in their everyday life, they feed differently. Like, I don't really know much about a lot of people, but I did see a few clips about Ally. And when I saw, she talked about the cracking of the baby's ribs while they were being violated, I just knew that she was telling the truth, because that really does go on. And it's not just some random thing. These people consume their sacrifices, and they consume the innocence of children. So it's almost like a production line to what she said was going on. It's absolutely happening, and it's not just some random weirdo, crossing the line. This is the system of education, and this is the system upon which they feed off of.
Yeah.
And that is just like, for them, normal. They're supermarkets, they're consuming the sacrifice. So if they're consuming the sacrifice, they have to create the sacrifice, supply and demand. So what Ally was talking about, it's not some random thing. It's literally like a production line.
Yeah.
And you hear about like baby farms, and there were these facilities that were. There's baby farms. The hospital sells babies to these baby farms. They put them in the little beds that you see when you go visit the baby right after they're born and you're like, oh my God, it's a girl. No, they go put them in these little things, and then people go down there and poke at them. There's people at a baby farm. There's nobody holding the baby and, oh my gosh, it's crying and I'm just going to dress it and feed it and clothe it and give it a bath. No, they're experimenting and they're poking at them, and they're seeing which babies can take trauma. The baby farms. This happens on baby farms too. You do understand that, right? Where they're holding babies, newborn babies, fresh out of the hospital babies. There are people who have fetishes on hearing a baby's ribs crack as they have enjoyment and hearing what it sounds like to break a child's ribs. You know that cracking sound of your knuckles? You know that sound? Yeah. It makes a crazy ass sound when you break somebody's ribs.
Like, this is part of the cycle of trauma, that in programming people and in trying to get them aligning with their system, with their sadistic system, part of watching that kind of thing or participating in that type of sadistic ceremony or whatever you want to call it, that's part of their traumatization that further perpetuates this system. Like, this is where you had said with what was going on with Sean Combs when he was a child and what was happening around him and what he was exposed to, and then things that Ally has said, things that you're saying, other survivors have said about the things happening in the tunnel. So I mean, we don't need all the gory details of it all, because we don't need to be traumatizing people either, right? In delivering information. So just, I think the main fact though is just how prevalent these tunnel systems are and how much a part of the great big problem that plagues society, that there's so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, but it is the answer to so many questions, and in so many unsolved cases, and in so many unexplainable mysteries of the world, it can be explained by these systems, And I mean, we know that with the Epstein case, there were tunnel systems part of that. We know that now with the Diddy case, that's part of it. We know that when these big drug trafficking operations are shut down, that oftentimes there are a tunnel system involved in bringing stuff over the border or whatever, right? So I think just getting people to that point to understand that there's an underground system is like the first step, and then slowly but surely from there, because there is so many layers to it, and it is a lot of it's not great shit, and we don't really even want to have to explain it to that point, but to be able to get to, like some of these, just even the experiments are kind of like scary things, like for different people. Just knowing about the tunnels alone is a trauma. Like just thinking about that, and that there's all these different things going on behind the scenes, right underneath the road, right under the sidewalks, right in your neighbor's house in the basement. That kind of thing right there alone is like, okay, we'll get everybody on that page. Then we go deeper. It's same as you would with a rabbit hole. Here's the entrance to the rabbit hole. Here's what's going on right inside the rabbit hole. And then we go deeper, and in such a way that's not going to traumatize anybody, because the information is valuable. And if we do start talking about all the things that are happening down there in detail, not only are we feeding the sadists, but we're helping along with the traumatizing of the masses. And that's what keeps them asleep. That's part of the keeping them, locked into the program, right?
Well, that's what they want. And I know I've touched on this before, but they have a program. First of all, it's important to understand that the sadistic system that we're all locked into on the surface is being run and controlled by the inner world people in their system. Okay. And we can prove that it exists. There's so much evidence out there. But part of their program is to wake us up at the end. They want us to be traumatized. They want us to know that they've been stealing our kids and getting away with all these horrible things. This is like the grand finale for them. They want, and that's why sometimes they send disinformants to the surface world, and they prop them up and they talk about all these things, and they get all these followers. It's like, oh my God, they're speaking the truth, but they're actually an agent from the inner world to start feeding the truth and waking people up.
Yeah.
So they've been doing this for quite some time, And so they want us to become aware of the tunnels. They want us to become aware of their rituals.
Yeah.
How many children go missing every year? Millions of children. And where are they going?
Yeah.
They're not just for the creepy PDF files in the surface world. And even in the surface world, you do have, creepy PDF filers that are, keeping children in their basements and in closets and in hidden rooms. And that exists also.
Yeah.
And that is part of the human transportation crime that's going on and all the disappearing children. But there's also where they're brought into the inner world for a specific reason. So in the inner world, they have people that are breeders where they're creating their own source of,
with bred in
people.
captivity kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are people that have been born in there and don't even know that there's a surface world, that something exists
That's
outside of there. It's so terrifying. And there's also people that are working in laboratories with cloning, with seeding children, seeding babies and growing them. So why would they need surface people? Because it feeds a certain part of them. For them, there's nothing more delicious than somebody who is totally oblivious to who they are and what they're doing to
the
bring
terror
them
of
into
it
that
all.
world.
That's part of the terror and the trauma, is taking them from their family home and into this world and seeing all these things, and like that's feeding what they're trying to harvest from that being, right? So it just
and
kind
they
of
process
intensifies it.
family. Yeah, exactly. And there's a way that they actually process a family, which we will not speak about.
Sure.
And it's something that you just cannot fathom. A human mind can't comprehend. But the point being, they want us to wake up, and they want us
But
to
they
know.
want it to be
what
so
we have
fast
to do,
that it traumatizes us further. So if we know and we start looking into these things and reading into it gently and softly and start waking up people before they do it in the most horrifying of ways, I think that's the secret, right?
that's
That would
the
be
task at
secret.
hand.
Yeah. Where are the tunnels, do you ask? Everywhere. In every form. From primitive to high-end. And in between mansions. There were prohibition tunnels. Alleged underground railroad tunnels. Abandoned mine shafts. And subway systems. They are everywhere. And it's absolutely possible that many have been maintained and or restored for nefarious purposes.